Hello and welcome, PocketWatch here, and it's about time for yet another episode of DS Era, and who knows, maybe we are going to finish DS Era today. I don't know, you probably know because you probably played the game already, unless you are playing together with me and you don't know as well. But anyway, we just jumped into the singularity with Reinhardt, and this is not Mari's beach, so that's weird. Let's just continue, I guess. I'm kinda on the like wave of recording this era. Like I kinda just cannot stop recording, to be honest. So yeah, let me just like continue the game and we'll see. Also, let me on the comments what would you like to me to play next time after we finish this era. I said this before in other like videos, but I thought like since we are near the end possibly, then that would be a good idea to bring that back again. So let me know in the comments under this video what kind of visual novels would you like me to play next after this era. I cannot say I will put all of them into the vote pools and stuff, but yeah, like I take all suggestions into consideration. I have a thought of what I want to play after this era, but I'm not sure yet. So we'll see. Anyway, let's just go. Let's continue. Also, yeah, interview with Kaiziko Bay also is coming on the channel, if anyone wonders. I answered this multiple times on the comments already, but I never said this like on the video. I'm not sure if it's going to be like... I don't know even if this is long or not. Maybe I will just play this after this era. Or maybe I will play something else and then Kaiziko Bay, I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, this weird place. Reinhardt felt bereaved of his sense of reality. Okay, we are in Reinhardt perspective. Okay. He woke suddenly, and with unprecedented discomfort. Even he doesn't know where he is. I thought like he would recognize this place or something, like maybe it's like from his memories or something, but no. Still in daze, he turned around to be met with a familiar sight reflected in his confused eyes. His old self? The worn wooden desk, the mountain of papers resting on it, the cup of tea now seemingly cold as ice. Oh, this is like his old office or something. Huh. Aren't they supposed to be like on the like serpent throne or something? They mentioned this before they like fall into this hole. There was nothing strange about this. He was in his very own office, the one he had been granted following his promotion to the Lieutenant General. Oh, interesting. He doesn't recognize this as something else. It's like, huh? He shook his head, his features contorting in frustration, not due to the headache, but rather the irritating fact that he nodded off before finishing up his papers. He must have slept for about 10 minutes, it seemed. He reflected upon himself apathetically. Negligence and sloth were two characteristics of the man of his stature. The executioner of the state could under no circumstances be allowed to exhibit. His pride would never forgive it either. Responsibility was the duty of the modern man. It mattered little if the task itself was trifling and time-consuming. He was no more than an automaton to whom the world would rarely even bother to bear its thanks. Lieutenant generals or mere rank and file were but cogs in one giant mechanism. There was no place in it for those who failed to fulfill their duties. Reinhardt skimmed through one of the papers, scribbling his signature at the bottom of the page, a highly manual form of labor he had been repeating for countless days now. Scandals, censorship, regulations, propaganda, they were all the same. Death to all the guilty, as well as those in the grey area, just for good measure. He wouldn't pick one or two from the innocents to make an example. Anyone could do it. No one in the Third Reich would hold him accountable even if he made a mistake. It's kind of manual labor. Even a child could carry out the kind of manual labor. Reinhardt received this position only because he would rest less than the others, and thus do it slightly more efficiently. The world had yet to see the Blunder Man. It seems almost as if he was born only to carry out the work that others instructed him to. Okay, now I wonder if like we are like continuing the story from where we fall into the hole, or this is like actual backstory of Reinhardt, like from Reinhardt's perspective, like he actually dozed off basically and he just woke up, and this is like not like, you know, they fall into singularity and he woke up here and he consider this as reality now. I think it might be the actual backstory. It could be.
しかし、くだらん夢を見たものだ。
Oh, never mind.
よりにもよって、地獄の主だと?
Never mind. We're actually following the story. So we fall into singularity. He woke up here and decided that everything that he said and like everything in this era basically been a dream. Okay, so the sense of reality is broken here basically. Huh. Or maybe that's the DS era plot twist. Like all like the whole game been just a dream. Imagine that. The dream he had was simply that far beyond the realm of common sense. He became a king of the dead, a Tottenkampf emperor that lorded over the entire legion of abominations. He hadn't heard of anything more ridiculous. A notion fit for the child's daydream, or a madman's delusions, a hallucination experienced by lunatics as they drifted asleep, pumped full of sedatives. Vile and utterly bad taste, incomprehensible. The apparent villainess of his own subconscious left Reinhardt somewhat surprised. The final morsels of love and respect he still felt for himself evaporated then and there.
かつての対戦、その競争に当てられたか。
Ridiculous. The very definition of nonsense. He had been born immune to the thrill of emotions. Not once had he felt warmth in his breast. The only smiles he knew how to produce were ones that sent a chill down the spine, and even those he managed only once or twice in his life. So I assume this situation here is happening before he met Mercurius in the cell, because in his dream, like he thinks it's a dream, he knew Mercurius. So I assume it's going to be something like he will go to visit a new prisoner basically in the cell, and he will see Mercurius and he will be like, wait, I saw you in my dreams, or something like that. They could set something like this. As such, it was difficult to imagine that the turmoil of fickle and aimless justice could possibly affect him in any noticeable fashion. Country, people, ideals, race, religion, they could all fight for whatever they wanted. It mattered little. There was no shortage of pretexts in the world. Meanwhile, he would simply continue doing his job. He would carry out all orders which reached him from above without a moment rest. For Reinhard Heydrich's entire existence hinged on the fact that he refused to ever cut corners when it came to his profession. A boring man who lived in a monochrome and orderless world.
それが夢とはいえああまで笑うか。
Never would he wear a smile so broad, to even toy with the notion was folly, for it was an aspiration that no amount of years would fulfill. The decisive smirk of the devil regard gazing down from beyond the far heavens. The muscles in his cheeks were rigid as steel, Merely opening his mouth meant a troublesome task. One could almost hear his jaw creak with effort. Okay. So that was a dream. So was that a dream manifestation of his secret desires? The delusional yearnings that he himself had not been conscious of? A far-fetched fantasy that all men dreamed for at least once or twice in their youthful days? The self-consolidation of the psyche, a demolition of reality? Could be that becoming the lord of legion or demons was precisely what his heart truly desired. This is interesting. Why they... I wonder... Right, this is actually interesting if we are going to see all of the other characters. I mean, Reinhardt is here. So what else we can see? We could see Mari maybe. Actually, Mari not. Mari was dead for a long time. Unless she gets like transported to maybe when the Cagliostro was around, to her times. And Ren could also be in this timeline somewhere, because old Ren yeah, he was like around World War II as well, right? Like we know from like Machina talking and Rusauka. So maybe we'll see Ren here as well, from like Ren perspective or something, like from the old Ren, like the first soul that he had. He answered the knock at the door. Reinhardt's pointless contemplation vanished without a trace by the time he raised his face from the papers on his desk. So someone is going to tell him that we have a new prisoner and there's going to be Mercurius, isn't it? A man entered the room in orderly manner. Reinhardt spotted the insignia of the colonel on his collar. All his attention instantly shifted to work. Okay. Higher rank. Right? Colonel is higher rank. Also, yeah. Attention shifted to work. So yeah, he wants to look like he's working. No, he's not. Okay, so... Okay. I was wrong. I thought like... I'm bad at like military stuff. And ranks. So Colonel is lower. Okay, never mind. So he just like wanted to appear, you know, working, so his subordinate wouldn't think like he's lazy or anything. However, there is a certain matter I just you should, okay.
前置きはいい。見ての通り、私にはまだ目を通さなければならん報告が山ほど積まれてある。火球のようなら早く申す。時間が惜しい。
The colonel glanced at the papers on the desk. He knew Reinhardt was not a man to mince words, and as such promptly straightened his back and began his report. Okay. What happened? Oh, god damn it. A noise. He could feel a lead slide away from his memories. Ah. The man did not need to utter under breath, for Reinhardt already knew. For knowledge. Yeah, and this is Mercurius. Okay. An inexplicable conviction formed itself into words, escaping his lips. Okay. Reinhardt's features remained impassive in response to his subordinate's surprise. But it was he who wished to be surprised. Reinhardt uttered words that he could not have known, as if having remembered them. In fact, his sensation did not feel fresh at all. I wonder if we see now what actually happened, like he already felt the foreknowledge before. Because we had this, like, the prison cell before. But we didn't show this, that he remembered that. I wonder if that actually happened back in the day. Or this is just for current situation. An oddly uncanny feeling, as if he had just started into the eyes of his reflection in the mirror, unsure of which one of them was real. A sensation that he had been intimately familiar with, as if it had tormented him his entire life. An immense feeling of discomfort stirred the resignation nestling within his heart. Reinhardt found it unpleasant, yet never would he allow it to show. He instead stood up, as if trying to continue the conversation, taking a few steps towards the door. Okay, so we're going to meet with Mercurius. Also, did I mention in one, like, when Machina talked about Ren, they were like comrades, so they were like similar rank probably, right? They were like in same tank or something. And then we had Rusauka backstory with the World War II Ren as well, being in that backstory. Do we know what rank Ren had back in the days? When he's been like his original soul here, in original body? Do we know his rank? How far in rank is he? Is he just like some like random soldier like on the bottom line? Or he's been like somewhere higher? I'm not sure. I don't remember if they mentioned that. Did they mention that? Can you like tell me in the comments? Maybe? I mean, if they didn't, then don't spoiler me, I guess. But I don't know. I believe you will not like spoiler me, but I think like rank is not a big of a spoiler anyway. I think, right? It like doesn't give like any extra info. It's just like trivia, I guess, right? As if attempting to expunge that inexplicable emotion from his chest.
1939年11月20日、大ドイツ帝国総統兼首相アドルフ・ヒトラーの演説中に起こった謎の爆破テロ事件。
Okay.
この全欧州を揺るがせた出来事が私と彼をここに引き合わすこととなる。
To who are you talking? To yourself or what?
有史以来初の世界大戦に敗北したドイツ帝国。貧困と絶望にあえぐこの国は新たに出現したカリスマ的指導者によって不死鳥のごとく復活し、再び世界に覇を唱えんと近隣諸国への侵攻を開始した。ゆえここに前回のそれをはるか上回るであろう最大かつ最高の、そして願わくは最後であってほしいと皆が望む第二の大戦、その幕が今静かに上がろうとしているのである。
Huh.
つまり総統閣下の暗殺自体は無事と申しますか、当然のごとく未遂に終わり事なきを得たわけですが、肝心の犯人を特定し検挙することが遅々として進まず、それと申しますのも
心当たりがありすぎてわからぬということだろう。仕方あるまい。閣下を恣意し奉らんとする者など運河のごとくだ。
Makes sense.
文字ど
Reinhardt interrupted his hesitant subordinate with a furious glare as they reached their destination, as corridors led to the barreled cells. He could tell what the colonel meant to imply, and he loathed to waste any more time listening to matters with an already settled answer. This establishment, prepared for political prisoners, was in truth little different from the slaughterhouse. The stench of the rusted bars, blood and death lingered in the stagnant air, and that was hardly a surprise. Only about 10% of the offenders brought in could leave the place alive. Such were the prospects of one apprehended by the Gestapo. Past offenders did not matter. Short of the select few exceptional circumstances, they would merely cook up a charge of their own and proceed to execute the hapless convict before they even realized what was happening.
確かにおっしゃる通りなのでありますが、だからといって我々帝都の万兵たる者がいつまでも手をこまねいているなど恥にしかならず。
言い訳は良いたい。それで閣下の中心であり帝都の万兵であるケイラはこの奥にいるものを捕らえたというわけだな。
さようであります、中将殿。
This was not an unprecedented approach. Provided the true culprit remained beyond reach, a scapegoat would be needed. The one whose blood would oil the grinding gears running society.
まあそれは大義だ。事の真偽はともかくとして、ケイラの努力はあながち無意にも終わるまい。
Reinhardt could decide both the scene and the degree of the punishment. That was right within the limits of his current authority. As such, he would simply do it again in this case. Though it might have seemed like the excuse of the callous bigot being in the wrong place at the wrong time was just as grave a sin as another's in the present state of society. The weak had always had ways to protect themselves. The past deeds of the current culprit failed to guarantee his innocence, and that was more than enough to put him to death. Reinhardt condemned the ineptitude of the man he had yet to meet.
と申されますと。
名は何と言ったかな。
That pitiable failure of a man.
カール・エルンスト・クラフト。
Yeah.
スイスのバーゼルに生まれ、現地の大学を卒業後、帝都に流れてきたというのが本人の証言であります。これにつきましては特に問題なく、偽証ではないとの確認も取れましたが。
I don't think we heard his full name of this era, I would say, of this current Mercurius, right? Like, we know Karl Kraut, but I don't think we heard Ernst before.
なんだ。
Reinhardt narrowed his eyes at his subordinate's reluctance. The man's behavior did not seem to be instigated by fear. Rather, his eyes betrayed a certain kind of distaste, perhaps aversion, as if his body itself resisted uttering the name of the captive.
その、何と申しますか、この男、いささか卑怯な分野に傾倒しているようでありまして、実際奮発者ではありますが、
先生術による未来予知。魔術師か。
Yeah. We had this talk with Mercurius before. In short, a small-time swindler, adept only at exploiting the ignorance and anxiety of the
さ
masses.
ようであります。もちろんそのようなまやかし、くだらぬざれ事に過ぎぬとわきまえておりますが、事実として相当閣下の危機をかの男が事前に言い当てていたということを鑑みれば、無視もできず。
Yep, makes sense. He could plan this. No one was naive enough to believe his prediction to be a proof of digital sorcery at work. Supernatural powers were the territory of the madman and lunatics. A far simpler and believable explanation would always present itself.
そのカール・クラフトとやらが、各
Yeah.
暗殺の手引き、ないし絵図を描いた張本人ではないかと当たりをつけたか。
Queer behavior that beggars mistrust. That man had stepped over the line of the state protection. What a fool. He had dug a hole for himself and would now learn what it meant to play as such the hard way.
ご苦労。K は優秀だたい。くだらぬ流言、迷信に惑わされず、現実的かつ文明的な判断能力を有している。相当閣下に代わりことほぼ K のような人材こそが帝国の宝だな。
ありがたくあります。
よろしい。では戻りたまえ。魔術師とやら会うのは私一人で構う。
は？ですがそれは。
You could not possibly leave a senior officer alone with the madman. Reinhardt glanced at his hesitant subordinate. One only needed the slightest push to make others go silent. The many years he had spent in the line of work taught him that much.
何か問題があるかね、タイ。檻を隔てて向かい合い、いくつか取り調べをするだけのこと。しかも相手はただの詐欺師。キコや画廊、獅子の部屋に丸腰で入るというわけではない。
The man further down was no wild beast. It was a ridiculous farce, and neither of them needed to waste more time than necessary on such a trivial matter.
分かったならば戻りたまえ。心配はいらぬ。
了解いたしました、中将殿。
ああ。追って指示する。それまでしばし休むがいい。
Reinhardt watched with indifference as the other proceeded to leave. Ow. As exceedingly dutiful man, that notion exhausted the extent of his sentiment towards him.
ではさて
It was time to take care of the situation in that cell. He proceeds down the decorous hallway. He was but a few steps away from the rusted iron bar separating him from the man inside. Yeah, this is like the same situation, but it's different. He again get a glimpse of foreknowledge. Maybe actually it is what we saw last time, but last time we didn't saw it like from inside of Reinhardt's mind. Maybe he already had these flashbacks, this like foreknowledge situations going on here, and we just didn't realize it back then. I wonder. A momentary light-headedness assaulted him. He felt as if he had passed through the corridor before. Again, that feeling of unreality. Yeah. Uh-huh. Exactly the same scene. Paying no heed to the odd sensation akin to this continuous intoxication, he finally reached the cell. A shade of a silhouette sat inside in utter serenity with almost mocking smirk on his lips. Reinhardt's first impression was that of the withered tree, then a mirage. Vague, uncertain, he could not help narrowing his eyes at the odd man who, despite most certainly being here, seemed almost like a projection from somewhere afar. Not far from the truth. His very existence was thin, as if it had withered and shriveled up. He resembled an old man who had achieved everything he could ever wanted in life. Reinhardt could not feel even a hint of vitality or hope from him. His obsidian eyes seemed to have been frozen in a state of eternal decay, like a pair of colorful yet lifeless agates. Gazing into his eyes felt like looking at a dead fish, or rather, a sea creature that somehow survived being pulled out of the unknown depths. A fish that should have been able to live in complete darkness, yet by some mistake learned how to breathe oxygen and found itself awfully out of place. And so it remained unable to accomplish its only desire, to die and vanish for good. That's actually a very good description of Mercurius. That's cool! It yearned to return to the water, yet all it could do was meaninglessly hop up and down on the ground. It craved succor, a being that seems a condensation of its reliance on others, a human trait Reinhardt despised. As such, he could declare one thing with absolute conviction. There was no way this man could have plotted to kill the Führer. It had no feelings or aspirations to begin with. He would find no meaning in assassination. He would not care if the whole country turned upside down on the morrow. A random piece of nonsense he uttered happened to be accidentally coincident with the truth, that was all. At that point, the possibility of that man being the culprit had completely vanished from Reinhardt's mind. A withered tree had no aspirations. It could only wish to eventually become fodder for the flowers. And in fact, for some inexplicable reason, filled him with the disappointment. Reinhardt, despite his inability to feel empathy or emotions, seems to have been expecting something from this man without realizing it. Ridiculous. He directed his gaze back to the vague shadow. Its beady glass eyes answered him with a hint of curiosity.
K が噂の大逆者か。とてもそうは見えぬな。私は
ラインハルト・トリスタン・オイゲン・ハイドリヒ中将、秘密国家警察ゲシュタポ長官、大ドイツ帝国にその名も高き貴公子にして、裏では首切り役人ともあだ名
He knows everything, yep.
大使殿、お目にかかれて光栄だ。私はカール・エルンスト・クラフト。詐欺師であり、せいぜいがテロリスト。魔術師などといううろんな評価より、そちらの方が近いといえば近い。
なるほど。
The man interrupted him, finally showing some life in his bearing. With that, Reinhardt had to up his impression of him a little. It's been a long time since someone got ahead of him. That voice certainly sounded fit for lies and deceit, and indeed gave the impression of insensitivity to pain, regardless of how much malice had been directed at him. That smile of his would most likely never waver. Oh yeah, we never saw Mercurius actually without his smile. He's always smiling now I think about this. Yeah, he never changed his expression.
なかなか興味深い人物ではあるようだ。この国で私の前に引き出され、そのように笑える男などそういない。
I mean, technically you can do anything to him. I mean, even if you would manage to kill Karl Kraft, then he would be resurrected as the Avatar basically again at some point, right? Because Mercurius is just like basically the god of this universe, like at that point. So Karl Kraft is just another of his avatars. Like before, there was who was with Mari? Again, you know what I mean. Like the others, yeah, because yeah. Yeah. He had courage, at least, for all the good it did him.
それで K 担当直入に言うが
Pretty much yes. For if he hoped to survive, that previous trade was a severe blunder. It was hard attitude, the one owed to assume in front of the head of the Gestapo.
私の職務は国家に害なす者どもを処罰することが本分だ。詐欺師でありテロリストなどと自称する輩ならば首切り役人という刑に言わせればうろんな二つな通りの真似をせねばならん。
ほう、つまりあなたはその名を特に誇っていないと。
さてどうだかな。しかし職務に私情など持たず挟まず、いやそもそもそういった感情が従前に働かないからこそ
His word had no colors. His breast had not known heat even once in his life. As such, there was no one more fitting to mete out impersonal punishment. He judged everyone equally, leaning towards neither of the extremes, mixing no hint of emotion into his decisions.
と K は我が本文の遂行対象になるような存在か
The Swindler smiled, not minding Reinhardt's piercing gaze in the
遺
slightest.
憾ながら否定はできぬ身ですが、相当閣下の恣意逆未遂に関与したか否かと申さば是というわけにはいきませんな。私は何もしていない。
A meaningless statement, if Reinhardt ever heard one. He had long since grown tired of those accused pleading innocence, and knew exactly how to deal with them.
皆最初はそう言う。
では拷問でもしますかな。
してもいいが無理であろうな。
The man understood the situation as well as Reinhardt. His smirk stood as proof of that. Hiding the truth had no meaning in this place.
私はな、どちらでも良いのだよ。ことの真偽が是であれ非であれ、人は死ぬべき時に死んでいく。他者から殺意を抱かれるに足る人生を歩んだ者、今回の騒ぎが K の手によるものかどうかなど問題ではない。殺されやすい人間が殺されかけた。ただそれだけのくだらん事実だ。
ならば私がここで何を言おうと意味などないとあなたはおっしゃる。
言ったであろう。非常に殺されやすい御人なのだ。
It didn't end to internal and external political foes. His very existence gave birth to terrorists and malice. Entire countries wished for his demise. There would be little meaning to the Gestapo that preoccupied itself with the truth.
故に K が無実の罪で処刑されたからといっていわゆる真犯人というものを逃した危険、今後それにかかずらう手間などは大会の一滴だ。疑わしきは罰せ。 神父ですまぬが、このゲシュタポはそういう条理で成り立っている。
His life had been worth that little. Yet the man still betrayed no hint of fear. He merely observed Reinhardt with thinly veiled interest. He was evaluating him. Not quite. That gaze was hardly so simple, and it appeared to pierce far deeper. It reminded Reinhardt of the eyes of the scientist. It took the look of someone scrutinizing a phenomenon through a microscope, the slightest detail. Like those white coats working day and night on the chemical weapons. Did this man still think he could get out of this alive? I have a feeling like this scene is exactly the same that we had before. Am I wrong? I feel like we have exactly the same informations we had before. He then cocked his head with an ironic smile.
なるほど。あなたはまさしく噂通りのお方らしい。が、一つだけよろしいか。
許そう。何かな？
私をここから外に出して何をさせようと考えている。
Once you release me, yeah, this is what happened before. Yeah, his foreknowledge just told him everything. Reinhardt was rendered speechless for the few moments. It did not sound like a thing a man sentenced to death should ever dare to utter in his would-be executioner, but above all.
これはまた、いなことを言う男だな。
もちろん、無駄を厭うあなたが、真偽に関係なく処刑されるのみであった詐欺師風情のもとに訪れ、ハマツさえ死にたいかなどと問いを投げる。先ほどのお話を逆説的に考えれば、たとえ真犯人を釈放することになっても構わぬと。さて、これは私の読み違えなのですかな、首切り役人殿。
The two men regarded each other in silence. The thing in this seems like a magician. This thing, yeah. Or at least, this is how this shrewd and silver-tongued swindler should have been called. He allowed none of his own thoughts to show, meanwhile choosing to toy with every other word Reinhardt uttered. A queer and aberrant fellow, yet one from the realm of ineptitude.
面白い。どうやら想像以上に切れるようだ。いや、今のはこちらの程度が低かったというだけの話かな。認めよう。K の言う通りだ、魔術師殿。ただあえて訂正するなら、私がどうこうしようと考えているのではない。
Reinhardt held up the papers he brought in earlier, displaying them for the prisoner to see. Payment on it had been the most ridiculous scheme, a mere prolongation of the senior officer games.
取引だ。ここで死ぬか、傀儡として命をつなぐか。どちらもまあ、結果的には大して変わらない。
What an irony, huh? Live as a puppet, and all of you became his puppets. He would lose his free will either way. If he agreed, every single action in his life would then belong to another. Little they know.
これは宣伝書、プロパガンダというやつですか。
最小殿はこの手のことに抜け目がなくてな。吐いて捨てるほどいる敵の一人二人を特定するより、それほどまでに狙う。
To input the safety of their Führer with the supernatural.
書世記、ノストラダムス。どうやら帝都のご婦人方は、今こういったものに興味を示しているらしい。そして、世論などというものは、先日詰めるところ、女子供だ。
If you think about this, I just thought about this because Mercurius current body is just his current body, right? It's like aging and dying, and he probably changed his appearance along the years, right? So what I just thought about this. What if like one of his names before been actually Nostradamus? What if he's been the guy that made prophecies and stuff? And made the Nostradamus prophecies.
我々は勝つ。総統閣下は不死身である。先の大戦における敗北を払拭し、戦意を鼓舞するためにノストラダムスが必要だと。
He opened the cell doors without waiting for an answer. Life or death, whenever he chose, he would have to leave. His posture made it quite evident that he posed no physical threat, and not even an athlete could flee this place. Reinhardt himself could subdue him. He had yet to allow a single man to escape.
さて、どうするね、魔術師殿。鍵は開けたし、枷もない。このまま檻から出るというなら死は免れるが、それは同時に意志を奪われ、言ったように私はどちらでも構わない。ここで殺してやった方が、あるいは慈悲とも考えたゆえ、公正を期して選択の場を与えたわけだが。
A statement smeared in the near ironic hypocrisy. The whole existence was far removed from the very concept of fairness. Whenever the man's choice, he would be subjugated by Reinhardt authority. Death of the body or death of the mind. I choose only the devil would bestow upon a man, and to Reinhardt it came as the second nature. Even his ability to feel abjuration had long since withered. No longer could the world light a spark in his breast. Everything he did would be part of the bleak routine, including this very moment of waiting for the prisoner to make his choice.
あなたはなぜそのような満たされぬ目をしておられるのか。
His words spoke none of his choice, instead voicing a question. The prisoner regarded Reinhardt with the eyes of a curious child.
何？
It was as if the man's words had pricked something in Reinhardt's heart. His nature? The furtive puddle of his frustrations. He did not know. He could not. He felt nothing of the sort. He narrowed his eyes, unable to find the words to address the other man with. Colonel Kraft, observing Reinhardt's momentary confusion, made an exaggerated gesture of mock consternation. He cast his gaze downward, resembling an actor in the scene of the great tragedy, as if deeply tormented by something. It displayed that precipitated anger and irritation rather than empathy. Yet the other man's obsidian eyes of the deep sea still pierced Reinhardt with absolute sincerity.
ゲッベルス教の決定すら場合によっては覆す。いや、それだけではない。ゲシュタポの長であるあなたがその気になれば、総統閣下ご本人すら容易に追い込み破滅させる。その若さでそれだけの地位と権力、才気を有し、世界に覇を唱える帝国の暗部を掌握した国大使。男子たらば皆があなたのようになりたかろう。ドクロを背負った貴公子殿は、しかしなぜかつまらぬ遊びに落胆した幼子のように鬱屈しているご様子だ。
To say the magician's words did not surprise him would have been a lie. Not because the swindler had read his heart like a book, but rather due to his ability to impeccable name and define that inexplicable sensation whose nature not even Reinhardt could assess.
気になる。あなたは興味深い。
He finally stood up and left the cell, but would not cease talking. His voice rang dispassionately, yet ardent at the same time, sudden but absolute, like the poet reciting a verse to the heavens. Yeah, he likes to talk a lot, we know. The swindler sang, as if slowly transforming into some unfathomable creature from underworld, shedding the skin of the man like the crude cloak.
その渇き、飢餓の心、どこから来てどこへ行く。
Okay. Nonsense. Yet any sort of reputation would turn into a poison at the tip of his tongue, sinking down to his soul rather than flying out into the open.
あなたは何を求めて惑っている。
A blunt question, followed by the hyena-like smirk.
聞いているのは私の方だったはずだがな。
He had no obligation to answer the madman.
それにそもそも K の命は。
For knowledge again. That sensation returned the moment his thoughts drifted to his duties, accompanied by the onset of dizziness.
待て。
The fuck? What's this? Noise. That accursed noise devouring his consciousness would refuse to subside.
なんだこれは。
Oh? His worn out memories flashed through his mind, detailing the continuation of the conversation, the one he had yet to have. Yet the foreknowledge. Tiresome communion, an uninspiring conversation, a feeling of repulsion bordering on physical pain. Everything flashed through his mind. He remembered. All manner of information flashed through his mind in limitless droves without ever ceasing. He begged for it to stop. An outcome to exceed all eccentricities and delusions. Only the wickedly smiling silhouette of the swindler remained etched into his vision. Reinhardt could tell he was laughing.
おやおや、いかがいたしましたかな、中将殿。お顔の色が優れぬようですが、寝所で横にでもなられた方が良いのでは。
So, I wonder if we are getting actually... What is this CG? Does the... Yeah, it's still a bars, okay. I still hate this background.
黄金人も言うべき冷房が歪んでしまっているではないですか。美の損失だ。世の婦女たちが嘆きましょう。
So basically we see, like, from the first person perspective, from Reinhardt's perspective, how foreknowledge works for him. That's why he was never surprised by anything in the game. Because this is how he sees the world, like, he's just like talking, and then suddenly he has a glimpse of the future.
いらぬ世話だ。口をつぐむがいい。
ならばぜひ先の問いに答えてはもらえまいか。あなたの選択、あなたの価値観、それがどのような形なのか、私は興味が尽きぬのですよ。何よりも知りたい、聞きたい、胸に留めておきたいのだ。あなたと私の懐かしい語らいなのだから。
何？
The madman seems to affirm the very aberration currently consuming Reinhardt's mind. A past he couldn't have possibly known emerged once again in his consciousness with renewed vigor. Reinhardt found himself utterly without an explanation. No soul could possess knowledge of such things.
K は
I wonder, like, what are the rules to have the foreknowledge? Is Mercury specifically, like, making specific people having foreknowledge? Because he's painting the world so the world have foreknowledge. But seems like only he, Shiro, and Reinhardt have this ability. So he can, like, bestow it upon anyone, I guess. But he's the main target, like, he gets the foreknowledge all the time. But outside of it, nothing else is happening to the world, right? I'm not sure. And even the words that abruptly escaped his lips were in complete concord with the bizarre sensation.
古代妄想郷だ。さぞかし世の中が楽しかろうよ。
Yes, that had been exactly what he said. Pictures and scenes flashed through his mind like the fast-forwarding movie. The unpleasant, sickening feeling refused to subside. A scene he knew nothing about. The aberration of remembering the present as it unfolded before his eyes. If there was one word to describe the sensation, it would be foreknowledge. The volume of his knowledge increased exponentially. Yet, the actual amount never truly changed, for indeed, he was merely remembering, not learning new things. The traces of emotions and sensations still lingered in his soul, had now been completely expulsed. A sensation that grew only worse in the presence of the accursed trickster.
おう、では覚えていないと。私たちの語らいを、出会いを。私はあなたと出会い、思い出したのですが、そちらには。
Wow, Mercurius is so fucking good. I think this is new actually.
しかりだ、くだらん。
Maybe. Or maybe not. I don't know. I know that the flashbacks for flashbacks. How to say that foreknowledge are flashbacks? Foreknowledge of Reinhardt is a definitely new thing in the scene. So this like all happened before. He already had foreknowledge at that point. Reinhardt flattery denied the other man the other's nonsensical remark. He had no obligation to get along with the mad illusions. An aberrant sensation might have inexplicably assaulted him there for a moment, but it was certainly not enough to affirm the madness on the man's lips.
古代妄想郷と言っただろう。K の感想はそれのみだ。語るべき
No
自
shared
慢な
past, but we have shared future.
かけらもない。期待だと。的外れだ道化師。私はな、そう大した男ではない。
The furtive pool of resignation remained ever stagnant in his mind. Reinhardt harbored no ardent desires, not any grand ideals to boast of. It was only the surrounding rabble that, in their envy, projected onto him some inexplicable dignity or glory. Medals that hardly served a purpose other than decorating the room, endless praise that amount to little more than hollow lip service. No applause or cheers had ever moved his heart, not in his entire life. He did not grow tired. He was unfeeling to begin with. His senses were merely dull, both to happiness and pain. If anything, to label such things as wonderful and to be envied seemed like madness in itself.
昔から加減というものができんのだ。故に、何であれ真摯に取り組み、結果としていつの間にか今の地位についていただけ。まるで止まることのない車と同じだ。性能がどうであれ、休まず走り続けていれば、世界の一周や二周は誰でも回れる。
Sure.
K が私に何を感じているかは預かり知らぬが、つまるところ、ラインハルト・ハイドリヒなどそんなものだ。娯楽が欲しければ、他に面白いものは5万と言おう。そちらに行け。
And he could have all the fun in the world with them. A mind ruled by madness likely translated all sensations to amusement. An attempts at insulting or rejecting him would fall on the deaf ears, no doubt.
では私の買いかぶりだと
他に何がある？好みは不老でなければ不死でもない。処女の腹へ宿っていたわけでも、天から降りた御使いでもない。
But he wants to be invincible and stuff. He was not born with the burden of duty. No revelations graced his mind. He survived by doing what he was told, much like everyone else. Disregarding the scale and the amount, Reinhardt had only ever done a single utterly basic job. There was not a single shred of uniqueness about him.
与えられた地位をなくせば、それこそ市政の一角と変わるんだろう。その程度なのだ。殴れば倒れ、撃たれれば死ぬ。人はそうであるべきだ。死からは逃れられ、すべてのたれ死ぬ。ならば私も、かくのたれ死ねばいい。
ああ、いけませんな。あなたほどの人間がそのようなことを口にしては、己が見えていないとはこのことか。まず部屋に姿見を置くべきだろう。ご自愛していただきたい。このままではあまりにも部下の敬服に悪い。
不服そうだな、詐欺師。言ったではないか。K はよそに行くべきだ。
He knew not how to utter words of lament. He had no desire to humor the magician any further, and no longer tried to hide his contempt. His tone had grown coarse, his words losing their former eloquence.
今一度私の問いに答えてほしい。気づいてほしい。あなたは愛ているのだ。一度でも本気を出したことが終わりか？走るつもりで歩いてはいなかったか？
走っていようが歩いていようが何も変わらん。いずれは止まる。
He was moving forward in either case. Speed mattered little.
勘違いしている。あなたの上限はそこではない。遥か上空に存在する。
Yeah,
だから難問に出会えない。全力を出せたことが
we know this conversation.
心躍る敵手。超えるべき難問。それを凌駕した際に得られる達成感。
言ったはずだ。くだらんとな。空いていればいい。飢えていればよかろう。生きる場所の何を飲み、何を食らおうと飢餓が言えぬのなら、そんな生物はな、生まれてきたことが過ちなのだ。
A beast would die the moment the hunger was satisfied. This man was urging him to become such a thing. The very notion felt ridiculous beyond description.
いずれ死ぬのだ。それで結構。わずか数十年程度のせい、満たされぬからなんだという。
If dying was the fate of all men, then all he could do was to live an earnest life. Why would he wish to escape death if he never cared much about living?
なるほど。ならばあなたの座右の銘は。
そう。メメントモリだ。
Yep.
人はいつか死ぬ。死は重い。故に、それに対しては厳粛であるべきだ。
He would not try to fool himself into thinking there was equality in mankind. But in death alone, all had the right to line up with each other. All had to embrace it, no one was exempt. That grim final stop loomed visible in the distance for all men to see. How could one ever dare reject it?
死ぬべき時に死ねぬものが残される。誰かが言っていた言葉だが、私はこの言葉に共感する。
Machina? Wow! These flashbacks. I mean, for knowledge. God damn it. The words of someone he couldn't quite remember. The vague memory of the man rigid as the iron flashed in the Reinhardt's mind, yet both his name and appearance seems to have eluded him. But he could remember his conviction, the vigor of his craving. And he had to agree, humans could exist without life, but what of those without death? Where would they find themselves?
訪れた死を受け入れられぬ時、その人間は死体のまま動く羽目になるだろう。怪物になってまで活動する理由もない。私は一度のせいで結構だ。K の古代妄想に生息する陳腐な魔獣などではない。
Reinhard Heydrich would have turned into the monster from the magical dreams, that he only overturned this logic. The aberration transcending life itself, the devil soaring beyond the principle of the unknown. The very thought of it made him dizzy with repulsion.
なるほど。つまりあなたは人間のままでよろしいと。満たされぬまま老い、死の到来をただ受け入れると。
そうだ。
He could happily live and die as a man, as one soldier, one of many who merely carried his own sworn duty.
それは本当に心の底からの願いですかな。虚食虚構のすべてを剥ぎ取ったあなたにとっての。
くどいと言っている。
He rejected the life of the aberration, and why wouldn't he? His whole being recoiled at the very notion of it.
これが私だ。それ以外にはなれない。首切り役人、ゲシュタポ長官。その言葉以外に自分を形容するあざ名が欲しいなら勝手に何とでも呼ぶがいい。ただし、押し付けがましく怪物の怪我をよこされて。
Eagerly masquerade as the beast. You are a beast.
既得な神経は。
You just hide that fact. The words of the sneering swindler were but drivel in his ears. He emanated no trace of the supernatural. The inexplicable discomfort that took hold of him merely got to his head. The philosophy on life and death would never change. Life and die. If one wanted to spend their time in fulfillment and worldly pleasures, they should have joined the hedonist sect.
では